It was a beautiful afternoon, so I decided to wash and dry clothes and hang them out on the line for a change. I know it sounds old-fashioned, but living in the country, a lot of people still use clothes lines. Drying on a breeze, clothes get to smell really fresh. I washed a couple loads and hung them out. Lovely. But, back in the house, disaster. There was water all over the floor, pouring from my washer. My first step was to quickly turn off the supply to the machine. I started to mop up the mess while I considered what to do next. Should I wait until Jeff comes home? Or call a repair guy? Or maybe ask my neighbor? Ben loves to come over and help. Yes, I could get it looked at right away, no waiting. But, then again, I knew I would probably have the hassle of fighting him off. Ben was a very touchy-feely guy and I'd always been careful around him, maintaining some distance to avoid the risk of becoming a cheating wife. I didn't want that, even though life had become pretty boring and frustrating with my husband. Jeff worked long hours. Okay, he made a good living and we were comfortable, but he didn't give of himself. That would mean more to me than all the riches. Does that make me selfish? I decided to forget Ben. Too much bother. Best to call a repair guy and stay honest and out of trouble. An affair was not on my agenda. I tried several repair services but none could get out until the following week. Damn, I couldn't wait that long. So, I settled for waiting on Jeff to get home. I hoped it was something simple and he could fix it. It was around 7:30 before Jeff finally came rolling up the driveway. I'd prepared dinner earlier and I was really agitated by the time he arrived. And I prayed he wouldn't give me some lame excuse about why he couldn't look at the washer. If he claimed to be too tired after a long day, that would really upset me. Jeff came in, parked his briefcase on a chair, and started removing his tie while complaining, "It's been a long day." See? I just knew it. I ignored his groaning. "Jeff, while I get dinner on the table, could you look at the washer, please?" Everything was fine till I came back in from hanging out the washing and found water all over the floor. "Libby," he groaned, shaking his head, "not tonight. I'm really tired. I just told you, I've had a long, tiring day and all I want is to eat my dinner and relax. You can call a repair guy tomorrow." My blood was boiling. I called the repair service today. Several of them, in fact, but I can't get anybody to come out till next week. I stared at him, desperate for him to offer some help. "Please Jeff, please look at the damn machine." I was almost begging. "See what you can do. It might be an easy fix. Please, Jeff." But he refused, shaking his head some more. "Okay, that's it. I'll get it done without your help. I should have known better than to ask you. Anyone else asks you to do something, and you're Mr. Right there. But not for me, oh no." I was mighty annoyed to say the least, and that night was a very cold one in our house. No more conversation, and I left him to dish up his own dinner. There would be no service from me and I stormed off to bed very early. Lying there, I fumed about my unhelpful husband. All I wanted was for him to look at the damn washer, and he couldn't be bothered. Well, to hell with him. I'll call Ben in the morning. He'll come right over. Screw you, Jeff. The next morning, I didn't speak to Jeff. He tried talking to me, but I was too upset with him. I simply gave him the cold shoulder and waited for him to leave for work. When he'd gone, I showered and put on a pair of brief shorts. With my hair in a ponytail, I went outside to see if Ben was in his backyard. A little older than me, Ben was an attractive man and had kept himself in very good shape. After his wife passed away, about a year earlier, he devoted himself to keeping healthy and fit. He was also exceptionally good at maintenance around his lovely house and could do almost anything. Plus, he would help anyone. But, as I've said, he was a flirt. There was no mistaking that Ben loved women. As I stepped outside, Ben came around the corner of his yard from his morning run. His face was flushed and he was sweating. I know some women wouldn't find that attractive, but I did. Ben stopped in his tracks when he saw me. Hey, Libby, how are you? Good, thank you, I'm doing okay. I smiled. I guess you've just finished your run. A hot one today by the looks of it. You look like you could do with a long, cold drink. That's exactly what I'm planning on having right now. Care to join me? Sure, Ben, I'll join you. I have something to ask you anyway. I followed him but stopped on the back patio. Care to sit out here, Ben? It's beautiful here. I've always admired your patio, it's such an inviting, peaceful place. Ben wiped more sweat from his brow and smiled. You know, Libby, you're welcome to come round here anytime. I nodded, studying his facial features. Ben had beautiful blue eyes, a thick head of mostly gray hair, a mustache and goatee. Right, he said and went off to fetch the drinks. When he returned, Ben sat in a chair across from me. Look, I know you've admired me from a distance as I have you. I couldn't deny that, but, before I could speak, Ben continued, don't be nervous, Libby. I know you're not happy. Jeff is rarely home, and he never shows you any attention, at least, not the kind you need. How dare he? How does he know what goes on in my house? Excuse me, Ben, I said quickly, but who are you to tell me what my husband does and doesn't do? Sorry, I must go. Thank you for the juice. Turning and walking off the porch, I stormed back to my house, madder than hell. I grabbed a Coke from the fridge and sat at the table. I needed to calm down and think. Why was I so upset? Had he really done anything wrong? Was that his fault? A few minutes into my thoughts, I was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Ben. Libby, please don't be upset. I really thought you were interested in me. Just tell me if I was wrong and I'll apologize. I took a deep breath. Time to be honest. No, Ben, you weren't wrong. He started to smile again. But, listen to me, you know I'm married and I can't be doing with anything like, well, I've never cheated on Jeff. Libby, he said, slowly and quietly while shaking his head. Yes, it would be cheating according to the book. But what about you? Think about yourself. How do you truly feel? Are you being satisfied sexually? I think not. Am I right, Libby? Ben was right, but I didn't know what to say. He took a step forward and I saw so much desire in his eyes, I had to turn away. Damn. I really fancied him. But was I ready to be a cheating wife? As if in a trance, lost in thought, I let Ben take my hand and lead me into my kitchen. He stood behind me and pressed his body against mine. No, stop it, I thought, but it was wrong, but I couldn't draw away. I was weak, powerless, and had to face facts. I wanted him. Can you guess what happens next? Ben kissed me passionately, until I broke off and told him that I needed to get cleaned up. I still had my washing machine problem and I told Ben what had happened. He said he'd freshen up at his house and then come back to look at the washer. I went to my bedroom and carrying my clothes. Looking in the mirror, I saw some of Ben's bite marks. What had he been thinking? What have I done? I would have to hide them from Jeff. Still, I was angry with him. I might even sleep in the spare room. I laughed. Being pinned to the table hadn't helped. What in the world were you thinking, Libby? You're not a young girl anymore. After I finished washing and dressing, I walked to the kitchen in time to see Ben coming across the yard. He came in and I explained about the flood. He only took a quick look before telling me the machine needed a new hose. I'll pick one up, he said. But, it's going to cost you. And he winked. The next day, after his morning run, Ben came over and put on the new part. I ran a small washing load to check that it wouldn't leak again. Sure enough, it was fixed. Ready to leave, Ben asked, care to join me for lunch? Sure, I nodded. Why not? We smiled and, as he left to prepare lunch, I thought about being a cheat and, momentarily, I felt guilty. But, would Jeff care? Would he even notice? I shook those thoughts out of my head and turned my attention to getting ready for lunch, and being dessert. When I knocked on Ben's door, he yelled, "Come in." I'd been in Ben's home many times and knew his house as well as my own. I knew he'd shouted from the kitchen and, as I walked in and headed in that direction, Ben met me halfway. "Wow, Libby. You look beautiful, sensational." "Thank you, Ben, but don't go making me blush as red as my dress." "You are beautiful, Libby, I mean it." "No matter what you're wearing," he said, grinning. "Oh yes. We do have all afternoon, but I must be home by 7. I think we can arrange that, but let's not waste any time." He pulled me into an embrace. "I hope you're not starving. I would love to have dessert as the first course." Leaning forward, he kissed me passionately. We stopped kissing and he carried me up. "Can you guess what happens next?" "I need to get home," I said, kissing Ben's brow. "Jeff will be home soon and I must have a shower." "Thank you for a wonderful afternoon, Ben." I giggled, tapped a forefinger on his nose, and added, "We must do it again sometime." "Thank you, Libby," he said, sitting up. "I'm already looking forward to another afternoon lunch with you. Who knows? We might even get to eat some food next time." I laughed and heading out the door. As I walked through my kitchen toward the bathroom, I glanced at the table and smiled. That table would always be special.